Genshin is in a very odd space right now. Or even not even odd. It's in the worst. It's experiencing the worst time it's ever been in. Genshin is in the worst space it has ever been in the history of this game. Which is very interesting. Which is very ironic considering how last year, literally around this time, we had the fucking 3 polls for 3 years bullshit. Which I guess is an annual thing. Like I guess Hoiverse just has it on the calendar every year to just do something to piss off the entire human race. But it's just very it's just very funny how every year it's just something new with this company. But it's just Genshin's in a very 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 odd very bad space right now with Natlin. Right now, if I were to describe Natlin in one word, I would say divisive. Most people, it's either you like it or you hate it, and there are just some people that are in between. You know what I mean? I'm more of the in between. But it's just and it's very funny because right now with 2.0 Wuthering Waves being out, where I think we're in a fucking another duality of man situation, which is honestly is bringing me back. This whole situation with 2.0 Wuthering Waves and 5.3 Genshin is really taking me back to like fucking '07 with the 7th gen console wars, with people being like, no, the 360 is better. No, sorry, the PS5, no, the PS3 is better. I like that one more. And instead of like, you know, actual hardware with value, with like actual intrinsic value, we're doing this shit over JPEGs. So, you know, gotta love that gotcha space. Gotta love the gotcha community. But the point is, Genshin is just very, 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 very low time. Now, what do I think about the Natlin as an area? Not the worst. Could have been better. Could have been a lot better. But it does have things that I did like. Like for starters, I do think the exploration Natlin was pretty good. It did bring me back. Sumeru 100% killed any want for me to explore in the game. That desert was so fucking horrible. But no, Natlin did bring back because I think I skipped exploring Fontaine most of Fontaine. I don't think I've explored half of Fontaine. But Natlin did bring back, and I was exploring Natlin. I think I like 80% in most of the areas. There's still some areas that I haven't touched yet, but the areas that I did explore, most of them are like 80%. So Natlin did bring back my exploration. Natlin was fun to explore. Now the story. This is where things get interesting because people are very divided on the story. Most of it, you have your Hoyo shows being like everything Genshin does, every shit Hoyo the way it takes in their mouth, they love it, but the 5.3 Arc Quest did have some ups, had some lows, and I think I understand why people really didn't like Natlin as a whole. Right. I think there are a couple reasons why. There are a couple reasons why Natlin, at least in my opinion, Natlin just wasn't really that well received. Number one is the fact that it's the Nation of War, and the entire area looks like Pokemon. I mean, let's keep it real. I understand that Natlin or even Genshin as a game isn't the most dark game. I'll talk about that in a second, but it's also doesn't help the fact that they're calling something the Nation of War, and you're talking to these things that look like Pokemon on heroin. You know what I mean? Let's keep it real. Fucking Inazuma looked more like the Nation of War than fucking Natlin. At least in Inazuma, there was actually like dark, depressing areas. And now Natlin just looks like fucking Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. But I think that's the biggest thing. And I won't lie, I don't know why they did this, but they took such an odd route of marketing the area and just like showing the area with all these vibrant colors and and this whole power of friendship mentality that they had with the entire area, which I guess that's been prevalent in the entirety of Genshin, but like they really kicked it up to 11, and it felt like fairy tale a little bit in Natlin with how much power of friendship they kept saying, like my friends are my power bullshit. But the 5.3 Archon Quest specifically, I thought was pretty good. And credit where credit's due. There were times where it did actually feel like the Nation of War. Like I guess in 5.1, there was that whole fight with the Abyss where we were walking around seeing all the dead bodies. Then there were times where I was like, this felt like the Nation of War. But then right after that, we were like, yeah, good job, all. We really helped our friends out. Go team. You know what I mean? We just did that right after, and it just kind of just killed the moment. So right now, I think it's fair to say that right now with Natlin, all the controversies, Genshin has hit rock bottom, right? I think Genshin has hit rock bottom. But you know what they say? Once you hit rock bottom, the only direction is up. But who knows? Knowing Hoyoverse, they might start digging a hole in that bitch. But hey, hey, like, we can only hope for the best. But I guess what I really want to do is just talk about what I think is going to happen for Genshin in the future, or like what I think they should do to, you know, really help the game state. Right. First and foremost, I'm not talking about combat. They've said multiple times they're not doing anything about combat. The combat has not changed since day one. They've done nothing to fix the combat since day one. I don't even play Genshin for the combat. I don't give a fuck. I have Wuthering Waves and I have Zenless Zone Zero. I don't give a fuck about the combat of Genshin. All right, I just do the Spiral Abyss and the Imaginary Theater to get my Freebo gems. I don't give a fuck. So I'm not talking about the combat. But story wise, I do think there are things that Genshin could improve when it comes to the story. Because, you know, as much as I do shit on Genshin, like 9% of my videos are me just shitting on Genshin and critiquing Genshin. But as much as I do shit on Genshin, I do prefer the story, the world, and the lore more than I do Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves has yet to actually, like, I'm not yet that invested into Wuthering Waves' story. But I am giving Wuthering Waves a little bit more time, because I think now we're really getting into the meat of the 90% script rewrite that they did they said they did before the game came out. I think we're finally starting to hit that. So I think I'm giving it a little bit more time. Rena Studio's story was really good. I'll talk about that more out. I want to make a video on the Rena Studio 2.0. But one of the things I think they could do for Natlin, or not Natlin, but like Genshin for the future, for the story. First and foremost, I know Genshin really portrays itself as like a very kid-friendly game, and like, oh, everybody can play it, right? Because they really want those 10-year-olds to go steal their grandma's credit card and spend their mortgage payment to get a C6 sit lolly. They really want that to happen. But there are many a times where Genshin does delve into like adult themes and adult conversations, and they need to handle that as such, right? Like, and it's very interesting to me, because it's a very interesting situation to me, because as somebody who really like delves into the lore of Genshin outside of the Archon quests, Genshin's story is actually like very compelling and very like well thought out when it's not the Archon quest. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, when it's not the Archon quest, like, bro, there's some fucked up shit that happens. We're talking human experimentation, child sacrifices, slavery, self-deletion multiple times. Fucking, I think someone got sold. I think what was it? I think there was a point in time where somebody was talking about I think there was an NPC in the game. I don't know if it's a permanent NPC or if it was for a quest. But there's an NPC in the game that was like talking about getting his intestines pulled out of his body while he was still alive. Like that shit's like, you hear this shit, you're just like, that's not Genshin. But yeah, there's like, Genshin does delve into topics like these a lot. That's why Inazuma, or specifically Enkanomiya, is my favorite place in the game, and it makes me so sad that they're not bringing us back there for anything, because Enkanomiya was like such a tone shift. It's such a dark and depressing place where it actually feels like some depressing and dark shit happens, and then which makes the area so much more interesting. But you know, they have these adult themes and they just don't address them properly. Like, I understand that like they want to market the game as kid friendly as possible, but if you're gonna introduce somebody as the ruler of death in the game, then I think the ruler of death should fucking kill somebody. They're the ruler of death. Like, what the fuck? They're supposed to be the Grim Reaper. You know what I mean? So I think they really need to start handling their adult themes in adult ways, right? I think the best comparison could be like with Farina and how they handled and how they portrayed the mental torture of having to be somebody that you're not for 500 years. You know what I mean? That, like, how they portrayed that with Farina losing herself over time and having to portray herself as something that she's not, having to put on this show and not be herself, be locked in this persona for a plan that she doesn't even know is going to work or when it's going to end, and just seeing the mental torture of that. I think they did a great job of showing that, and it wasn't like anything like crazy, but I thought it was very well done. It made Farina's character so much more interesting. And you felt more for Farina, like seeing it firsthand, like her losing, like, bro, that conversation, that scene where she was sitting with one of her followers, and she's just losing her mind, but she can't show it. She still has a smile on her face, and her eye is just twitching with a tear down her face. That was peak for me. I was like, God damn, that really showed the mental torture that she was going through, and it was good. Like, they need to do more of that. That's like that. I think if they portrayed that more and more, like, they could have done that with Mawika, and like really showing like the struggle she was going through with having to outlive everybody she loved, right? Having to live longer than everyone, like her entire family, like her sister. Like, they really should have. They kind of did, but they didn't really do that well. That's something that I feel like they really need to implement to the story, into the game. And I guess that's the first thing. Second thing I think they could do for the story is, I think this is a no-brainer. I've said this multiple times in like other videos, is they need to fucking start putting main storyline quests in every fucking patch. I don't understand this. I don't understand this logic of only doing story quests, like Archon quests patch is for 3 patches, and then like we get one Dainsley patch. It's very much capable for them to do a main storyline quest in every patch alongside the fucking hang out with your friends event that they put in the patch, right? Like, to give an example, right? Like Lantern Rite, like look what they do with 5.3. It's supposed to be the Arkham Quest and Lantern Rite. They can do that in every patch. It could be like the fun, happy-go-lucky, we all get together, hang out with your friends event alongside a main story quest, and that will expedite the story a little bit, so people can always be engaged in the story and not have these long ass gaps in between the story where they could just forget about everything. It'll expedite the storytelling. It'll expedite how many things they can talk about before the next area, which will keep people engaged for the entire year long, right? And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Snezhnaya got pushed back, because we haven't addressed or talked about anything really that much important outside of like the specific regions, because they keep introducing these things above the Archons, like Skirk, the Ruler of Death, the Dragons. They keep introducing all these new concepts that we just haven't talked about, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Snezhnaya got pulled back or pushed back, just because there's just so much we haven't talked about, and now we have to fucking talk about them. Because it's getting closer, like Snezhnaya, then Conria, and after that, after that, who knows? Maybe we'll get the Genshin anime, because they announced that shit 40 years ago, so maybe we'll get that eventually. But yeah, I think a main storyline quest every patch is not too much to ask for. They should do that every fucking patch, especially if they're gonna not focus on combat. Like, if they're gonna sacrifice doing combat, there's no reason why they can't do a main storyline quest. I guess the last thing for the story, which is a no-brainer, add a fucking skip button. The fuck? Add a fucking skip button. What? Like, we all know why they're not doing it. Like, it's a very simple thing to add. They're not doing it because not having a skip button artificially inflates the player retention, right? Because if they don't have a skip button, then that means people are going to be forced to go through the entire 12-hour R&R quest. And that's 12 hours of playtime that they can show to investors. So why the fuck would they add a skip button when they can force you to do a 12-hour quest where you're talking to fucking the Plants vs Zombies? Like, what the fuck? But either way, add a fucking skip button. I think the game would be so much more enjoyable, especially if you're not gonna voice the important world quests. Like, the world quests are so much better than people give them credit for, and it's due to the fact that they're not voiced. And I don't blame people for not doing it or skipping it or whatever, considering they're not voiced, which makes sense. I'm not like shitting on. I'm not attacking people for not playing those quests because it's not voiced. voice, because I kind of did the same thing. I skipped a lot of the quests because they're not voiced, but there are a few that like there are a few where I was like, all right, I'll sit down and like read some of the dialogue. I didn't read all of it, but I read like some of it, and for the most part, yeah, like most of it was pretty interesting and like really helped me get into the lore of the world. But no, for the people who don't want to do that shit, if you're not gonna voice it, right? If you don't want to spend the money to get people to voice the fucking characters, just add a fucking skip button. But no, they're not gonna do that because they need that artificial player retention. But yeah, that's really what I think they should do to make the story for Genshin a little, or really help the storytelling, or at least the story for Genshin in the future. As for do I think more and more people are gonna play Genshin? I don't know. At this point, I really don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with Genshin in the future. I don't know if the interest is gonna go down, or if it's gonna stagnate, or if it's gonna go up in bell curve. Who knows? At least for right now, there's not really any major character people are excited for. I mean, before Mawika, it was Arlecchino, and and we're not gonna get an Archon for another year and a half. So unless they dream market a really fucking hot character that people want to bang the shit out of, and not a fucking child, I don't think there's not really any character people are that excited for. So I don't know if that player interest is really gonna stick for a while, especially with Ananta coming out. I do think Ananta is going to be a massive disruptor for Genshin Impact, just like Wuthering Waves. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen for the future of Genshin, but that's just what I think they need to do to keep people's interest in Genshin, which is, especially since there's not really any other character people are excited for. I mean, even me, like, I'm trying to get both Mawika and Solali. That's purely because there's not really any character that I care about after that. After that, I don't know who I'm going to get. I don't think I'm gonna get anybody. There's no character that I want after Mawika and Silali. So, well, no, who knows? Well, we can only hope Genshin will get better. If not, well, I have Wuthering Waves, so who cares?